Let's. Hi.
Hey,
Hello there.
what's going on?
Nothing. How are you?
I can't complain. You got a different hair wrap on today. Look at that. Won't you do it?
Won't he do it?
Nat, what's up?
I'm ready. I'm ready. I look forward to these weekly conversations.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm gonna invite a few people into the room because I know
Okay.
how to do it now.
Hi, Aunt Patty. I
Hi,
see
Aunt Patty.
you here. Welcome to the room. Go ahead, everybody, at the bottom of your screen. Click on that arrow to the right. Hello, hello. Invite your friends to the live so we can have a fruitful conversation. I'm going to kick it off. My name is Natalie Dean. I'm the founder of Whine and Cheese Incorporated. We create safe spaces for professional Black women to bond and build within community. And I am joined here tonight by my brother.
Hey, what's going on, folks? Kavan Turman, and I am the curator and CEO of the Brothers Brunch Experience, where we pour into men with all the tools they need to be better husbands, fathers, and friends. Happy to be here.
Awesome. And together we have joined our organization to create this conversation called The Pairing.
The
And
pairing.
it is our desire to build, maintain, sustain the Black family, the Black community. And we look forward to doing that through our respective organizations individually, but also together. So, did everybody see this week's clip? There was a lot that was shared in that clip. What I took away from it is you need to know yourself before you can really get to know someone else in relationship. And therefore, you have to show up authentically and not necessarily bring your representative to the room. So,
Yeah. So, in other words, this week we're talking about the ego. I think we had an interesting conversation last week, and so ego is how we ended. You know, it's funny. I have a new friend, so I wanted to kind of share that with you. You got a minute?
yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, I don't know. This friend happened to be on our original cast.
Awesome.
You know this person very well.
Okay.
I think she might be an AKA, but she was your roommate, maybe. Her name is Lauren. Yeah. So look, folks. Every time I get on this live, man, I'm transformed. I think last week the revelation was Brene Brown,
Mm-hmm.
for whom I had never had the pleasure, nor have I had the opportunity to really check out her work, and I did. And when I got off last week's live, I had a DM, and it was just like, it was nothing but a what was it, a screenshot or a link, if you will, to a book. And I'm just so grateful for my new friends. And so I got something in the mail, and I wanted to share with you all. It's called Unlearn. And so if you've not read this book, my God,
Have
it's a
you
real
finished it
easy read.
already?
I'm sorry.
Have you
No,
finished
no,
it
no.
already?
I'm probably like in the middle.
Okay.
Now here's the thing. The dope part about this book, Unlearn, 101 Simple Truths for a Better Life, is that it's super easy to read. And if you read like I do sequentially, it tells you in the very beginning that this doesn't have to be the book that you read from beginning to end. It's actually a really cool book because it shows you little references and quotes, and I mean, depending on how you feel, you can go right to the index and go right to what you're trying to unlearn. But it's a really dope book. I had never heard of it before. Have you?
I have not. I have not, which reminds me, I had two books that I wanted to read from today, so I am not prepared because they're upstairs.
It's all
So,
good. It's all good. So if you've not done this already, check out Unlearn. And my new friend put me on, so I appreciate that.
shout out to Lauren.
Shout out to Lauren. Hey, so my boy Maurice, I told him about it. He picked it up the very next day. He's been reading it ever since.
Nice.
Because that's what we do.
That's what we do. We do
The author, excuse
influence
me, I'm
each
sorry.
other.
He's called the Humble the Poet, aka Kanwar Singh.
Okay, so what you're gonna do is
Put it in
tag that. There you go. There you go. All right. So we're talking about ego. We definitely want to divorce ourselves from our ego, but we definitely also want to talk about knowing our authentic self and bringing our authentic self to every relationship we're in, whether it's romantic, platonic, collegial, professional, parental. We want to bring our authentic selves. And in order to do that, Kev, to your point and to Lauren's point, there is some unlearning that needs to happen, right? So what is something that you've had to unlearn recently that is helping you to show up more as your authentic self? You like how I just brought that together? I was off the top.
Yeah. That was pretty dope. Um, you know what? One of the things that I think I truly have to unlearn, or recently I've had to unlearn, was that how I show up at work, how I show up in my different social circles, and how I show up to just people that are outside of my household is very, very different than how I have to show up at home. And it's been challenging for me because I give the world so much, right? And I'm doing a lot in the community, and I'm doing a lot at work, and I'm on 10, right? And so when I walk in the house, I am not on 10, and in fact, I need a minute so that I can get reinvigorated in order to be fully present home. And I'm not even sure who designed life to be this way, right? Because what I'm having to unlearn is the fact that it's okay. It's not okay, really, for me to come in the house and give my family a quarter, or half of me. But I've always justified it because I'm working hard and I'm bringing home the bacon, and that's how I've been conditioned. If I work hard, expectations, which this book tells you is a killer to any relationship. Yeah. Expectations, coming in the house to expectations, and with expectations, and giving all those that have been waiting all day for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Half of me. I need to unlearn that. There is a way to do it and do it well, and to do it better. So it's one thing that I'm unlearning.
That's good. And I will say from personal experience, you know, parents who were professional and were not only involved super heavily at work, but also at church and other organizations, it means so much to your children to come home and have time, quality time. That's my love language. So to have quality time, with your parents allows you a different level of perspective, a more personalized relationship than just parent child. So I applaud you for unlearning and relearning how to show up for your family at home. That's
Oh
dope.
yeah, it's in real time. I see Nata. Boom.
You
She
got
she during our segment, our 2 hour segment, she said, you go out in the world and tap dance for these folks, but then you come home and give us your ass. And again, another one of those phrases that I'll never forget, right? Because there's a lot of truth to it. And so today I come home and I'm tired, and my daughter runs up to me. It's like, Dad, can you please take me to the library? Can you please take me to the library? I get another book. And my kids are avid readers. I'm talking like they read books. They go through them every week. And I immediately started fussing, like, babe, so you gonna wait till I get home to ask me to take you to the library? You've been home all day. And I had to stop and think about it. Like, why am I fussing? One, she's wanting to read.
Mhm.
Two, she's begging to go to the library. And three, I've not seen her all day and I'm annoyed.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's
And
interesting.
as a daddy's girl, those times together, are priceless. I've been going on daddy daughter dates since I was 4,
Yeah.
and I still go on daddy daughter dates now. And as you know, your daughter's understanding of and expectations of men and relationships with men is going to spur from the relationship she has with you. So that's dope. I'm glad you're working on that real time, and thank you for being vulnerable about that too. I get it.
We got some comments in the in the chat.
Yeah, let's see. It's really hard, y'all. I got this feedback last week from my mom. She's like, y'all are having such a hard time reading the comments and being present in the conversation. I'm like, I know, but I don't have a solution right now.
I mean, these aren't, nothing life changing, but a lot of folks just chiming in. So we appreciate the love. It's funny. One comment says balance. We all deserve a break, which is very true. Another comment says so much growth in a week. I'll take it. I'm still, trust me, reading, trying to unlearn.
So I'm going to share with you something that I have unlearned or am unlearning.
Okay.
Or coming to grips with is probably a better term.
Okay.
And I just came upon this in the last couple of weeks. Is like, as much as I want to be seen as a good person, I am the villain in somebody's story. And that in a way humbles me, right? But I've really had to like take a step back and be like, Nat, like not everybody is going to see you either for who you are or for who you want to be. You have to be okay with that. So I am learning how to be okay with that because I am a recovering people pleaser. So that's what I've been working on these last couple of weeks is, you know what? It's cool. Like I've grown and will continue to grow, but there are going to be people who refuse to see me as anything other than the villain in their story. So that's what I got going on. But that
Wow.
also allows me to show up, more authentically today than I did, maybe a year ago, because I've just learned to accept that and not try to change their minds, because that was another thing. Let me prove to them that I'm a good person. Let me prove to them that I've changed. That's not my job. My job is just to change and to do good in this life. So that's what I'm unlearning and relearning.
Yeah, man. So we got to get you this book because there's so many triggers that I got when you said that. The one was there's a portion of the book that says people are expensive, and that chapter is dope. It just kind of talks about how people really can't afford you, and they have no clue in terms of everything, the weight that it is to be you. But yeah, man, it's a lot of unlearning. It's a lot of unlearning. So how are we going to carry this today? Who are we
Well,
inviting?
first of all, I'm cracking up at my boyfriend putting this villain emoji in the comments. Second of all, I want people to let I want to let people share in the comments what they've been unlearning and share with us. And so
Yes.
while we're waiting for people to share, do you want to invite some people to the room?
Yeah, so I have my boy, one of my homies basically told me he was not coming on no matter what. So I'll leave that alone. But I'm looking for my boy Chris, my frat brother. We talked about
I thought it was a superhero at first too, but then I know who he is.
All right, so I'm inviting my homie, so we'll see whether he comes. And so, I also read a really dope article. It was on 10 signs of ego in relationship. So while we're waiting for folks,
let's get into it. Yeah.
Can we get into it? All right, cool. So the first sign is the inordinate desire to be right every time. And this is basically is one of the first expressions of big ego in a relationship, the desire to be right at all times while paying little or no attention to the feelings of your partner. The second is communication begins to drop. And so we all know communication is key. Without it, all things fall apart. So to experience intimacy and companionship on a deep level, there's a need for the partners to be in the loop of communication. And when communication drops, it's a sign of ego. So the third is you begin to express jealousy. Now, I thought this was interesting, right? Because it's not the usual feeling of jealousy. This kind of jealousy is usually unfounded, stifling, and sometimes retroactive, right? So jealousy expresses itself in many ways, and this part is a little different in terms of, criticisms and cynicism, and all of that good stuff. And the fourth is you play the victim.
Ooh.
Yeah, I just want to sit that one there for a minute. So a sign of a bruised ego is the nagging fear that you are not enough. Hence, you approach your relationship from the position of being the victim and self-pity. I've been there, if I'm
Yeah,
being honest.
for sure.
Yeah. Number 5 is pride and arrogance. Pretty obvious. This is one of the biggest ego problems in a relationship. One of the standard expressions of ego in a relationship is pride and flat out self-centeredness. Been there as well. And number 6 is you find it difficult to admit and apologize even when you were wrong. Sounds like a lot of women that I know in my life.
Okay.
I just have to be honest. So
I don't know.
let's park it here at 6, and let's see whether anybody has said anything.
I want to invite Hazel to come up in here, sis.
And I'm looking for Chris. If Chris is on here, please invite him as well. Chris, bye.
Hold on, I gotta find. Here she is. Hazel, I'm gonna invite you in, girl, because she shared, don't be nervous, but she did share something amazing that she's unlearning that I want other women and men to hear.
Okay.
So, this is a safe space. Hey, girl. Hey.
Hello.
What's
Speaking
going
of
on, Hazel?
showing up in our authentic self, I was about to go wrap my hair, and I was like, you know what? No, I'm not.
That's exactly what my hair looks like under this.
Hazel,
I just finished working out. I just finished eating. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna show up.
And that's what we do here. We just show up. So can you tell us, because I saw the comment, but can you reiterate it for us, what you have learned?
I'm
and
really.
Hi, Hazel. How are you?
Oh, hi.
Very nice to meet you.
Hi. How are you? And you know what? The conversation that you had last week, and actually, I've caught a couple of these, maybe not to like their entirety, but I love these conversations. And Black men and Black women, we so need to have these conversations more, like even larger or smaller settings, because there is a huge disconnect between how Black women and Black men not only function in society, but as we function together. And that dysfunction, it causes dysfunction in our relationships. It causes dysfunction in our friendships, because we have been told about these European expectations of how we're supposed to, especially as Black people, Aboriginal, African Americans, whatever title in which you want to give yourself, how we're supposed to act. And we're not the same.
Yeah.
We're not the same. The way we do things, the way we show love, the way we show compassion. And then even if you were saying last week, the way masculinity shows up for a Black man is different for a white man. The way femininity shows up for a Black woman is different. And it's hard for us to sometimes understand that, because we're trapped in their idea of what, or their image of what that is.
Yep.
So anyway, I love this.
Wait, back up. Thank you. Kev, my fault. I did not introduce her. Hey, share with us a little bit about who you are. We're actually IG friends. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, so are we, Nat.
This is also true.
I'm a project manager and intellectual property specialist. I was in Washington, D.C. I have relocated to Mexico for a variety of reasons.
Nice.
Like maybe. And what I have found to be able to do is I help small Black businesses be able to maximize their strategies, their profits, streamline their processes, and be able to maximize what they have So, as we say, do you have a website? Are you reaching out? Are you into your social media platforms? What are you doing? How are you interacting? And how are you making the best of what you have to be able to live the life you want to live?
Very nice to meet you.
Beautiful.
So in reference to unlearning, I've had to unlearn a bunch of different things, but one of the things about being strong and not asking for help. Really, that being that strong friend or that person, like having to go through things and I don't want to talk to people, and being vulnerable and sharing the things that are on my heart, that are on my soul. I'm a Virgo, so I hit that hermit status so quick, and I'll just be like, oh wait, I don't like your face though.
No, my wife is a Virgo, so I get it.
Oh, okay, so okay, I was like, but
My
yeah, like,
Virgo.
see, that's the Virgo love. So, but I will definitely hit that place. Like I will stay at home. I won't talk to anybody for months at a time. I'll be going through it. And then it's those things where I really have to be like, you know what? No, I need to talk to somebody. I need to share that. I need to get this stuff off my chest. Even if, it's not per se to a therapist or just somebody who I can share with. Like, are you going through this too? Is it just me? Am I crazy? And then, and also because I said in the comment, it's part and parcel to the same thing, being able to receive more and not feeling like I have to do something in order to receive something. Because for me, maybe not for everybody, I feel guilty if you're just giving me something and I haven't given you anything in return. I feel like, well, I need to do something. You just can't be giving this to me. It just doesn't feel right. But learning that balance and learning that strength isn't what you handle by yourself. It isn't standing on your lone square by yourself. It really does take a village, and showing and having appreciation for my village and being able to have that kind of compassion, that kind of empathy, and that kind of connection with people that actually has helped me grow so much.
Wow.
That was a lot. That was beautiful. I want all the people in here to drop a wine and cheese, because clearly we need to recruit Hazel to Wine and Cheese.
I'd be interested.
And expand your community. Right. That's our buzzword right now is community. We always take like a little shot when we say the word community. But actually, your point about not feeling guilty or weird about accepting or receiving without giving first goes back to this idea that white people have created, right? And this whole like capitalistic society that we live in, we gotta work and earn to reward. So that's an interesting thing to unlearn. And you know what else I had to do is understand giving doesn't have to be a burden. When I give to somebody else, when I serve somebody else, I'm also serving myself.
Yeah.
And when I think about it that way, then it totally reframes the service and the giving that I'm doing to somebody else.
Yeah, because it really is an exchange. And a lot of times if we enter certain spaces, you feel like, well, maybe I don't have anything to offer. Maybe I do. But I remember I had a conversation with my little brother, and I told him, you know what, I'm just going to stop talking to people because apparently people aren't, I felt away. I was in my feelings, I'm going to be honest. And I was like, I'm just going to stop talking to people. I'm just going to be, and my brother said to me, you know what? You have no idea what your words do to people. You have no idea what your presence does to people. So I understand you may feel away, but you don't know what you mean to people. And you should really think about that before you just want to, get back into your reclusive moments. You really should think about that. You don't know what you mean to any, like you could say hello to somebody and you don't know what that means for that person today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to read chapter 71 and unlearn. Right?
You're gonna make me go get this book.
It says, are you in it to give or receive? Right? And I'm just going to read a piece of it. It says, when people evaluate their relationships, they talk about what they're looking for, almost as if they're posting a job ad or something, right? And then I'll skip down and it says, the culture of consumerism and entitlement that we've been exposed to has definitely encouraged a get-yours mentality that is weakening the foundation of relationships we have with each other. Then I'll skip over to my favorite part is all the things you're looking to receive from someone else, you can give to yourself, especially like love. And it kind of really talks about, you know, loving ourselves and how we all say it, but it's deeper than that, right?
It's deep.
We got a lot of work to do to truly love ourselves and meet ourselves halfway and give ourselves forgiveness and all that good stuff. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you, Hazel. And
Thank you for having me.
Let me know when you're back in DC. That's where I am. So
yeah, it might be a while.
Okay. Take your time.
But I will do.
Awesome. Take care. Thank you.
Bye, y'all.
Yeah, I also think,
I don't know.
we have anybody else?
We don't. Hazel, do you let yourself out?
I don't know
We
how.
have to learn how to do that.
We
Right.
That out. Go ahead and press. Is there an X on your?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay. I'm reading some of the comments. Nata says she's unlearning bad habits, poor communication, taking things personally. That's really good. That's actually one of the 4 agreements. Don't take things personally.
Got that in my office.
Bashir says being the villain isn't necessarily a bad thing. Look at how many stories are rewritten from the villain's perspective and shows the justification or how they came to that position. I thank you for that. I thank you for that.
My boy. I don't see any of those comments, by the way. I don't know
That's my boy. That's my boy.
Bashir?
Yeah.
No, he's actually my boy.
He's mine.
I think I probably knew him first, but okay.
Right. Kwame says he's unlearning how to take criticism / advice. That's good stuff. Everybody is loving on Hazel. And yeah. Okay.
You know, I wanna address something. One, I was only on 6, so I still have 4 more to go. Mm-hmm. But do you consider ego to be a negative thing?
No. Yes and no. I think ego exists as a way to protect ourselves, right? I think it exists as a reminder, you know, if something has happened that has challenged our safety or something to that effect, ego serves its purpose. And actually, you read A Course in Miracles, there's a long, extensive chapter on ego and how initially it existed as a form of protection for us. It's when we use that to not create a sense of protection, but we create a barrier. And there's a slight difference between the two.
Yeah, I think it's important to give it language, and I don't want us to walk away from this conversation implying that ego is totally bad, because it's not.
I see Dev says ego equals confidence, and I would have to respectfully disagree with you, my brother. Ego can look like confidence, but I think we can be confident without being egotistical, if that makes sense. Kev, what do you think?
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think that, you know, ego is we all have ego. We need ego. We need ego to survive and to be who we are. But it definitely, there is a difference between having ego and being egotistical. So I would totally agree with you on that.
Yes. Farnham's Finest says ego is good until it's weaponized. I
think the word carries a negative connotation, period, right? But, you know, ego has positives and negatives. So
yeah,
as long as we understand that.
I wish I had my book. I'm actually going to.
Which book is this?
This A Course in Miracles. I'm going to invite somebody else to the room and see if they can just take my spot for a second until I can grab my book.
And so the other part I want to mention before we bring that person to the room is that I think it's there's levels to it, right? And I think too much of anything can be negative. Mm-hmm. So when we're looking at ego, I think it's really the operative phrase, if you will, is too much ego, right? When you have too much of anything, it becomes negative, and I think that's kind of the part that that's troublesome. But we all have ego. You have
Oh,
ego.
for sure, for sure. Yeah. I think it's like we need it, right? If we define it as something that we need to protect us or to kind of warn us against certain things, then yeah, it's not a bad thing, and we all definitely have one. To the point that Farnham's Finest said, it's good until it's weaponized. Max says, I think our ego is the first source to learn about ourselves, so it is important. Dev is hitting us with the definition: a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance. Okay.
Well, I mean, it's the right definition. I mean, it's this whole neuropsychological, like, I mean, if you really want to dig deep, we all have it, and it's something that we tap into. I just think it's levels to it.
Okay, so let's talk about when maybe the ego is beneficial for us and then when it's not. And actually, before we do that, I see Ebony has entered the room. Sis, I hope you were prepared because I told you I was going to invite you to the room tonight. Kev, go ahead and find a brother to invite to the room. Ebony, we're talking about things that we have unlearned in adulthood or most recent in your life. And then we're also talking about ego. What is it? Is it good? Is it bad? When does it show up for you? Yeah, all the things. So, Ev, I'm going to invite you in, and
So I
then
think
I want you to, Kev, I want you to finish your list too, and then
I will.
on that, I'm going to run and get my book
Okay.
so I can read y'all
I'll
this.
just start talking. I think Nat, and you go do your thing. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I will say in terms of ego, hey, what's going on?
Hi, hi, hi.
How are you? Ebony,
I'm
correct?
good. Yes, I'm Ebony. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Everyone.
Welcome to the table.
Thank you. Thank
So,
you.
we're talking about ego, and the crazy thing is, I think there's a lot of ways to discuss like healthy ego, and I think one part is realizing that the world doesn't revolve around you, and really keeping that spirit of being egotistical, keeping that down. And I think a lot of ways, even with Nat and I, there are some things that I think innately as a man, sometimes I want to. I feel it rising, right? Even in our partnership with this. And so I have to check those things. And so there are times where it's like, okay, well, I'll give you a perfect example. Well, whose platform do we go live off of? The Brothers Brunch has a platform, right? Or do we go live off of For Every Wine? And at the end of the day, I said, you know what? It doesn't really matter, because then whoever we go live from, whoever's platform we go live from, the other person could just download it and post it and have a fresh perspective. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Yeah. But ego absolutely creeps up. And so I remember when we were talking about it, it was just like, well, nah, maybe you go 1 week and I go the next week. And then I checked it and said, you know what? It doesn't even matter. Just why don't we continue to do it this way, because it works, and we can, go in another direction. And so all the things that the old me would absolutely need to, and this is real talk here, need to happen. Meaning, like, who opens up when we have these, right? Or whose name is here and whose name is there. All of those things come into play, because there's a lot of behind the scenes with even building this brand when the two brands come together. And I'll never forget something that happened. I sent it to Nat, and it said yada yada yada, and it said For Every Wine, and she said, and it should also say The Brothers Brunch. And I was just like, yo, I needed that, but I wasn't even tuned in, because I was spending too much time trying to be collaborative and collegial and fair. And so I think there's some ebbs and flows. There's right in the middle. But ego is everywhere, and we just have to check it. Ed, what you think?
I agree with you, and I think that it is very noble of you to admit that and to give that example. And I think it was a good example to share. As far as I think ego for me, like like you said, it can show up everywhere, and it's just a matter of how you balance it. For me personally, you know, I'm a follower of Christ, and I try to do everything from a place of love. And sometimes ego can get in the way of that, but I always try to do things the way that I think, you know, would help other people, the way that I think, you know, God would have me to do them. And so that's how I'm always able to check my ego. I'm able to say, like, is this something that God would be proud of? Is this decision and how I'm handling this situation something that God will be proud of?
That's good. It's a great example. It's a great example. I live for that.
Kev, this is the first time you're sharing this with me. I'm glad that you did. The only I'm going live is because I'm more tech savvy than you.
That's not true. That's not true. Just
I'm
this Instagram thing is just interesting. All of these quads and stuff. Well, yeah, it might be a little true. I'll shut up now.
But honestly, it really doesn't matter, like you said before, because whenever you go live with someone, it's going to show your audience and your followers that you're going live as well. So it doesn't really matter whose platform you're going live from, because like you said, you can save both. It's actually beneficial if you go live with someone that has a larger platform. I'm not sure how large yours is, but to go live with someone that has a larger platform.
You shady as hell. Did you just?
I don't know. I wasn't intentionally being shady. I guess
no, it's all good. It's all good.
That Natalie's is larger, but I'm just, hey,
no ego
she's
here.
actually helping you, so. And that's facts though, because I only know about Brothers Brunch because of Natalie's platform, and now I follow your page.
Vice versa, right? Here's where ego kicks in. There's a lot of people who know about For Everyone and Whine and Cheese because of
Exactly. So that's why it's beneficial on both ends.
It is. You know, one of the things we talk about often is that there's power in partnership. And so
absolutely,
I think the beauty is when we let go some of the ego, great things happen, right? But when we're in the way when we let ego get in the way, yeah, it can get ugly. So it's, you know, here's the thing. What I will say is oftentimes ego, when we talk about the word ego, it's typically associated with men. And so I'm just trying to throw it out there because ego really lies in all of us. And I just want to make sure that we all understand that.
My ringer on my sister's phone since high school, I think, since I was in college, maybe, has been Ego by Beyonce. So I don't think it's just men. I definitely disagree with that. I think that, you know, women and men have egos. I think that a lot of times, though, women's confidence gets confused with ego.
Yeah. And why do you think that is?
I just feel, I personally see that confidence is something that's seen as being positive in men, an attractive trait in men, but in women, to a certain extent, it's like you have to balance how confident you can actually be around certain people in certain settings. And it takes time for you to learn that you have to show up as your 100% authentic self. And the people that are for you, and those that aren't.
I like it. I think it also stems back to what Hazel had touched on. We are supposed to follow in the within the boundaries of what, Lord, this is going to come back. This is going to come. But what white people want us to be. Let's just be straight up about it.
That's
so,
fact.
You know, if we exude confidence, if we exude knowledge, if we are, you know, if we have conviction about anything, like it is seen as she's a bitch, she's egotistical, she's conceited, you know, all of these things. And that's where it stems from. And that is something that we have to unlearn because it was taught to us by people who didn't want to see us as anything more than being of service to them.
Yeah. I mean, I recently had a personal experience with that, and I had to learn that that's what I tell myself, right? I tell myself that this person sees me as egotistical. They see me as conceited. They see me as this, but really it's that they see me as a threat. And when a person has insecurities within themselves, which, excuse my language, but a lot of Karens do. That's just what it is. That's facts, especially when it comes to Black women. They have insecurities within themselves, and that's projected onto us. And then we're trying to conform to fit, you know, and balance how to maneuver and walk on eggshells around these people. And, you know, in my last position, I refuse to do it. I'm no longer working there because of it, but
Yeah,
I refuse to do that anymore.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats on that. Definitely takes yeah, takes a lot to do that. One of the things I do want to say, and this is not to shake things up a little bit, but it's really to just add another perspective to it, is that we can't, it's not all because of what the white folks have done, right? There's some free will in this as well. There's some people who are angry and are walking around with huge egos because they've not dealt with the trauma and all the stuff that they need to deal with, and they may be angry, or you know, masking something because of a lot of hurt that they're going through. You know, and sometimes it's easier to say, like, wow, like, who hurt you? Like, what, you know, what happened that's unbeknownst to us, to you in your past, or why are you showing up like this? It's not always anyone else's fault. Sometimes it's because we've not done the soul work that we need to do to just be better people, right? And so there is some onus there.
Oh, absolutely. Don't get me wrong. But I do think a lot of it is rooted in white supremacy.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of anger is righteous anger. You know, for a reason. But we can.
So, but no, I hear you, and I know we don't want to get that deep, because we absolutely can. You and I absolutely can. But how do you? There are people who don't know themselves, like, deeply, which is a whole other conversation. How do you have that conversation? How do you have, how do you teach or share with a community of people that this is way deeper than you would even imagine it to be? Like, how do you get them to a place where they even can tap into understanding how something that happened way before their mama or their grandmama mama was around, and how that residual we're still living with?
How do you clue them into that lineage of trauma?
Sure. You tell me, how do you do that? Other
Um,
than, I mean, this is a good way of doing it, but
yeah.
I mean, because so, and I said this before, I don't want us to be on this platform. Sure, highly educated. You know, we've tapped into some. We read a lot. We tap into things where we're starting to understand what things really are, right? And that's a part of us doing the work and unlearning. But we come in contact with people and friends, family, a lot of folks who they want to be better. There's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of unlearning that needs to happen, but you can miss them with this conversation, because there's a few layers that they need before they even get to this conversation. Does that make sense? Ebony? No?
I don't know if it's landing for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that it's landing for me either. I feel like I know where you're going with it, but I'm not.
So where
really
do you think
sure.
I'm going with it?
It's like, I know you don't want to talk about, you know, it being someone else's responsibility. It's more so about a person meeting themselves deeply, and how do they kind of find the root of where their ego may be coming from and how it's showing up. Is that what you're?
Yeah, it's a part of it. I think the problem for me is that I want to be able to have these conversations and let it land to, you know, for multiple people. I think some people are right with us. They're right in line with, you know, white supremacy and the whole nine. Some people don't know what that means and how that relates to ego. You know what I mean? And so I'm asking us to think about it. I'm not asking for the answer right now, but I'm asking us to think about what that looks like when we offline when someone asks if we can expound upon that. Like, what does that really mean, and how does that relate to ego? I just think that that's part of the work that we have to do. That's all.
Okay. And I also would, as you were speaking, something about, good soil came to mind in the Bible. Like, you can
Say it
sow
again?
good soil.
Yes.
And
Yes.
how sow seeds, but it's only going to fertilize and grow on good soil, right?
Yep.
So we can't save everybody, unfortunately.
Nope.
There may be somebody who is enlightened by these types of conversations, but our conversations aren't going to heal the entire community. As my mother says, don't worry about boiling the ocean. Work on a small little corner of the world. So in areas where I'm not well versed, I can put you onto a book, a podcast, a person to kind of help explain those things, and hope it lands on good soil.
That's a very good point. Can we do the other four? Get those
Go
out.
do 4, and then I'll read from the excerpt from A Course in Miracles.
Okay, Eb, and if you like to chime in while you're with us before you get off, by all means, you can do so. Number 8 is, well, did I do?
No, 7.
Was it 7? Hold on.
I think you gave us the first.
No, I did. So I did 5, pride and arrogance. I did that, right?
Yep.
Number 6 is you find it difficult to admit and apologize even when you were wrong.
And Kat, before you do that, what's the title of this list again for everybody that's just joining?
All right, so if you're just joining us, we are going over 10 signs of ego in a relationship and what to do. I don't think we had time to do what to do, but if anybody wanted to, unpack one of these, we could. Number 6 is you find it difficult to admit and apologize even when you were wrong. When you have this unhealthy ego, admitting that you were wrong about a thing is completely unthinkable. So I think we've all been in relationships where the other party just can't admit that they are wrong. And
I may or may not have been that other party in the past.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised.
I am no longer married to that person.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's wow. Let me see how much time we got. Number 7 is you may have narcissistic tendencies.
That is a word that gets thrown around a lot. Narcissist. Narcissism is like how we talked about energy and how it can be fluid. Everybody holds both masculine and feminine energy. It depends on what part, where you are on the spectrum. That's the same thing with narcissism. And I ask the mental health and psychologist professionals or psychology professionals to kind of break that down in the comments if you can. But I was reading about narcissism, and my therapist shared with me that there's levels, or there's a spectrum for that.
There's for sure. What I love about this is that it breaks it down and it goes into most narcissists. There's some form of manipulation in that. And so there's some triggers in here for sure, I think, for all of us when it comes to having come in contact with narcissistic people. But I do hear you. Number 8 is your partner always falls short of your standards. Your partner always falls short of your standards. And number 9 is you don't know your partner's love language. We've talked about that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the last one is unhealthy competition. Have you ever been in a relationship where, it's cute when it starts off, and then before you know it, it's like y'all going at each other's necks and it gets ugly?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I was in a 6-week relationship, and it was like something out of a Lifetime movie. As narcissists are only prevalent in less than 3% of the population, the word is too commonly used.
Yeah.
Nata says narcissists have a lack of empathy for their actions / behavior.
Nat, can I come out and come back in, because I can't see any of that?
Yep.
That's cool. All right.
Mm-hmm. So while he's doing that, and Eb, if you want to stay on, you're more than welcome.
Okay.
I will read. I just finished reading A Course in Miracles Made Easy. So if you all are familiar with A Course in Miracles, it's a really thick scholarly text pretty much, and there have been several authors who have given pretty much like the Cliff Notes version. Actually, I think that means I need to invite Kev back in. Yes. So I have just finished A Course in Miracles Made Easy by Alan Cohen. This is Mastering the Journey from Fear to Love. And he talks extensively about ego. He says, A Course in Miracles identifies the ego as the source of human suffering. Source of human suffering. Ego is a severely limited idea about who and what you are. It defines you as a body only, confined within the boundaries of your flesh, subject to all the laws and experiences that affect bodies. The world is a dangerous place where you must protect and defend yourself at every turn. This is what ego tells you. If necessary, you must attack before you are attacked.
Oh.
If you want to see and hear a litany of all the bad things that can happen to bodies, turn on the evening news. But he says in A Course in Miracles, it says, there was a time where you were not a body or an ego. You were a powerful spiritual being, united with God and the entire universe. You knew who you were and enjoyed all the benefits of a divine being. And then a moment came when you ceased to know yourself as a spirit and you began to regard yourself as a body. You underwent a crucial identity shift, and you did not cease to be a spiritual being, but you ceased to know yourself as a spiritual being. So let's talk about this crucial identity shift, because what the clip that we posted this morning talked about was knowing yourself before you can really truly show up in a relationship, and how showing up as your authentic self when you're meeting someone. In this part of the conversation, we were talking specifically in terms of a romantic relationship. If you show up as your authentic self, then it gives the other person the option to either deal with who you are as you are or walk away. But if you show up as your representative, they've kind of been coaxed into this situation and left, or can be blindsided if you turn out to be someone other than your representative.
It happens every day. I mean, and it's conditioning. I feel like, you know, okay, in this context, we're talking about relationships, but let's talk about work. Let's talk about, you know, do our jobs get 100% of who we are? You know, let's talk about code switching. Let's talk about having to, for years, having to show up to a place that pays us in order for us to have a life or live the life that we live. Let's talk about the version of ourselves that these people see every single day. Mm-hmm. Are you 100% in that relationship?
Prior to the pandemic, no.
Right. But post-pandemic, they get all this.
I think I saw one of my colleagues join.
I concur.
In this conversation. And Jenny, I'm going to be a whole different person when we come back to the office next week, girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not all my colleagues are ready.
But I'll say this, and Eb, we want to hear from you before you leave, right?
Yeah.
I think that we laugh about it, but something happened to us in this pandemic where we all had to pivot, and now I think we are showing up as ourselves and the best versions of ourselves, and almost like we were liberated to the point where, you know, why was I even spending all of this energy? Listen, I think I've worn sneakers with my dress pants more this year than I've ever in my entire career. I let my beard grow crazy, and honestly, it didn't change the words that came out of my mouth. It didn't change the amount of money that I raised for my organization. In fact, I was a lot more comfortable with being me, and I felt a difference even in how I responded, because, you know, you get the, oh, I see you're letting your beard grow. Oh, those are nice sneaks. Thanks, I appreciate it. I have all the 11s, or all the, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's literally a different person, but isn't it freeing?
Oh, absolutely. Jatia makes a really good point. She says you're being paid to be a skill, not a personality most times.
Ooh,
Right.
That's dangerous though. I
And
mean, because it almost makes you it puts a lot of responsibility on on what we decide to accept in terms of jobs. It almost makes you lean into interviews differently in terms of, you know, making sure that they are going to be okay with you being you. I
yeah.
would imagine.
Charlene says there's dimensions to who you are. And I agree with that. So
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about, so there is a dimension of me that is very professional. And it has nothing to do with my profession. It has everything to do with who I was raised by. Right. Um,
Huh.
there is a dimension of me that is very much introverted, but there's a dimension of me, depending on who I'm around, that is very much extroverted. So I
Same.
show up differently in different spaces, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm being inauthentic when I show up differently, if that makes sense.
it makes perfect sense. I feel the same way. Like I mean, I wouldn't show up to work without my hair untamed or, you know, just because that's just who I am. You know, that's who I enjoy having nice hair and, you know, being well put together. It's part of my personality. It has nothing to do with, um, you know, feeling like I need to fit into a space. So I agree with that. I show up differently in different spaces as well. So
Right, but Ed, so can I push back a little bit?
yeah.
Do you feel like, all right, so let's talk about when you were together with your ex.
Oh Lord.
Did you always feel the same conviction and fervor, you know, to show up with hair done, with, you know, like I said, I feel like we had these conversations about work and how we wouldn't dare go to work a certain way, but then when it comes to relationships, it's like I just want to be myself, and you know, you should love me, bonnet and all. And I just want to throw that out there. Like, did you ever feel the same conviction when it came to how you showed up for your partner?
Yeah. Like I said, it's always been a part of me since I was a young girl. I grew up as a cheerleader. I'm always put together for the most part. Like this is me not looking good. So,
Look good.
thank you.
Hey,
So yeah, I definitely was the same way in relationship. And I mean, definitely I smoothed my hair before I got on the camera, but that was pretty much all that I did. But yeah, definitely in relationship, I was the same way. I had the same convictions. For me, it's about me. When I look good, I feel good. Period.
Kev, I think I don't want you to walk into these dangerous waters.
None of my I had these conversations offline with all my boys, right? And none of them want to. I did have a few, and I seeded a few, but they obviously aren't on here. But none of them want to jump on. It's not my fault.
It's okay. It's all right.
What's
Oh,
the
I'm okay.
dangerous waters? Come on.
I just want to talk about not to, is that you raising your hand because you want to join? Go ahead and request to join.
I'm not
Uh,
ready.
no. But I just want to challenge you a little bit on that last comment because you talked about how, you know, men don't want a woman showing up in her bonnet or something to.
Mm.
Oh,
That's
oh,
what you
you gonna
heard.
get a bonnet?
That's
That's
what you
for
heard.
sure.
Okay, then please clear.
Yeah, I think that's what you heard. So I was asking Ebony. I'm very
Oh,
now listen that listen. We had this conversation offline before, so I know better. I did not say that. That's what you heard. And
so
so what
let me ask.
I was asking Ed was,
Okay.
does she feel the same level of conviction, you know, when she's showing up for a significant other as she does for the world? Because sometimes I feel like we don't give as much attention, myself included. You know, when we're in the house, you're gonna get all of this, right? And we're not sucking nothing in, we're not, you know, tucking nothing in. We're just giving it all to you, you know, straight with no chaser. And so I was asking her, does she have the same level of fervor? Because there are some women out there that don't. That's all.
And
It has nothing to do with me and how I feel.
And all I would just say is there are some men and women, people, if Olin was here, that don't. Not just women.
Yes.
There are some guys would prefer to walk around in a do-rag and ball shorts all day. So
Myself included. I get it, but I put myself in there. And that's the thing. I want us to hear both sides, because I literally said, myself included, but again, we're talking about women, men, non-binary, however you show up, whatever you identify as. So let's go.
Now, the bonnet thing, I don't walk around the house with a bonnet. I wouldn't leave the house with a bonnet, but I am going to go to sleep in the bonnet.
And he's going to be perfectly fine with that.
Like, I'm just saying, like, that's I heard a thing about a bonnet, but like, no, I'm not going to leave the house in a bonnet or in pajamas or something like that. It's just, growing up, I wasn't even allowed to wear flip-flops out of the house. That's just, those are considered to be house shoes. So that's, again, it's about how I was raised and just what I feel comfortable in. I mean, there's some things of how I was raised that I'm on the total opposite spectrum of doing, but there's certain things that I do them because it's who I am, it's who I'm comfortable with, and who I've decided I am, and what's for me. So,
and I think to your point, Ebony, like it's more about comfort than anything.
Yeah.
Yes, it's all about comfort.
Yeah, I don't leave the house in a bonnet all the time.
You're so funny.
But like, if I'm going for a jog, I have a bonnet on with like something. But anyway, but I'm also not going to bash somebody else for wearing a bonnet either, because what sis is comfortable.
I feel
home
like
has to be home, my man.
That comes down to judging as well, and it's not for me to look at somebody and judge them about their appearance and what they're wearing. If that's what they want to walk out of the house with, that's what they want to walk out of the house with. Now, I'm not going to do it, but I'm also not going to turn my nose up or my face at someone else for doing it.
Welcome now.
Welcome.
Hello. I'm not even gonna hold y'all long. I see how the conversation was going towards appropriateness. Someone said in the comment, and or how you present for your mate, which are really separate topics from, I think, the original topic of
ego
and being true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing who you are is, yeah, I'm able to present whatever way, but knowing who I am is that I like to be comfortable when I'm home, or whatever that mindset is. And so I think Natalie was saying it before with her different dimensions of knowing who she is. And that's all we're asking. And identifying your ego, knowing where your ego shows up, knowing where it's like, this is really hard for me, and probably a workspace to let someone tell me that I'm wrong. In a relationship, it might be harder. So identifying where ego is a struggle for you, because as you guys stated earlier, it is not a negative thing. But when you lead with ego, that's when it becomes a negative thing.
Yeah.
But knowing who you are, and knowing, I really don't like people talking to me before I talk to you. Like in relationship conflict, if I'm not up yet, don't talk to me. Like, let me stay uninterrupted until I have up out of the bed and I'm walking, then interface with you. That's knowing yourself. That's, if I don't eat, I'm not going to talk to you. If, I'm offended, I'm going to react to a certain situation. So I think how you show up is different than knowing your strengths and our weaknesses in a relationship, and not being blindsided, or how, acting or doing this. What was the initial thing? How did you guys present it? Representative. So coming with the representative, like, no, this, I could be attitudinal. I could be very opinionated. I am. And you laugh, and I don't see a thing with that. So like knowing myself and knowing how I can be very serious, and when people laugh while I'm talking, how sometimes that impacts me because I think that they're minimizing what I'm saying, but I know that about myself. And so those are the things that knowing yourself and identifying your own ego is. How I dress and show up for somebody, that's a whole different category. So that's all I just wanted to say.
This is all right. First of all, can we reset the room? Ed, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to, if you can let yourself go, because I don't know if we know how to let you go. I'm going to ask Nat if you can invite Handsome Genius, because I can't do it. See if you can invite him. He declined?
No, he did earlier, but I think he's going to join us now.
All right.
Here we go.
You in a car, brother?
Yeah, man. I'm with my son. We out here doing our thing.
That's nephew. All right, introduce yourself, good brother, and these are my friends. So safe space.
Hello, everybody. I'm the brother of Kavan. I don't know what else to really say.
Your name, brother?
My name is Christopher Bass. I am a brother of Kappa Alpha Psi also. I graduated from Link University, the Link University of Pennsylvania. I am a higher education professional. At this point in time, I'm kind of transitioning from place to place. However, I do own 2 businesses, which is a nonprofit called Gentleman Qualities, which is at 4 universities and a clothing line, and so forth and so on. We can just continue on with those
We
small
talking about ego
attributes.
today.
Oh, but yeah, should be happening.
Ego.
Oh, I think that everybody has ego, and I think that there's nothing wrong with that. However, I do think that when we were talking about our authentic selves, when we meet you, that's not really who you are authentically. I can't even say the word. Authentically, like it's like over time we get to know who you are. So I guess ego is just the biggest factoring in that, because over time I have to get to know who you are. It's not who I initially know. So the expectations that I have are going to be the same expectations as when I met you, which is going to be cute. Just like I should be going to be cute too, walking around the house cute. Just like I think somebody said in the comments, gray sweatpants is cute. That's what you say is cute. Your man should be walking around in gray sweatpants. That's just an expectancy. But I feel like those expectancies over time go away because of comfort and because of love. But that's just not.
So Christopher, let me ask you,
Mm-hmm.
how do you show up as your authentic self on a first date?
Every time.
Okay, and so what does your authentic self look like when you show up?
That means we need to sit down and have conversation, first of all, about expectancy, because you might have a different expectancy for this than what I do. That's number one. We don't need to go into stuff that may not happen or may possibly happen. We need guarantees. Okay, bang. Then after the guarantees, we need to figure out, like, what do we like to do? Where do you like to go? Are we interested in the same things? Because if not, then, it's just, a vibe is a good thing, but a vibe is not going to carry you. Just like, in my opinion, I feel like love is not going to carry you through a whole entire circumstance. It's stages of things that come together perfectly, and then you become like a Kavan and, his wife and everybody else that's been married for 20, 30 years. It's more than just specific things, but all of those specific things have to align, if that makes sense.
Yo, I love you. You can't hide nothing.
So listen, I'm actually in a training, so if you see my eyes go to the right, it's all good. Like I'm reading the chat in another training.
Look, I wanna reset the room. If you all are just joining us, this is the pairing. We are talking about ego today. You can join us every week on Thursday at 7:30 until we decide to take a break and kind of reset. But we are talking about ego. We have 2 very special guests. One from the Brothers Brunch and one from Whine and Cheese. So, Nata, what's your thoughts?
And I am breathing. If I was not breathing, I would have passed out. So there's that for the comments and down there. Just going back to like showing up as your authentic self and knowing yourself, I still feel like are 2 different things. And so call me a stickler to words, semantics, but knowing yourself and who you present on the first day, like no way would possibly show up to a first date like being all of me. Anyone, because it's too much. Like if I went through all the variants of me, for anyone that watches Marvel and Loki, the show that came out, if I was all the variants of me, you'd be like, oh, she's not stable. Something is wrong. So I understand showing up in a certain way when you're meeting someone. We're talking about knowing yourself. Like, do you know that you can communicate or that you can't communicate your expectations? Do you know what you're looking for in a relationship? Do you know what's going to best suit you or not suit you? Like, that is where the ego and knowing yourself, for me, where I'm resonating with. Showing up to a date, like, you shouldn't be on a date if you don't know yourself. You know how I go with these. If you don't know, if you're not able to express, communicate, stay home until you learn.
Nata, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I always do that. Just ask the question. Have you ever stroked a man's ego?
Yes.
Do you feel like it's appropriate in a relationship?
Yes.
Do you feel like it's needed for a man?
For some, yes.
Not my man.
Okay, so
that's a good man.
So I want to shift the conversation to we talk about ego and we talk about doing our own work, but can we talk about how we do the work together and how sometimes there is a need when maybe a partner does have a larger ego for there to be a little grace there, right? And so I'll take it off of you all, and you all chime in on this, right? So there was a moment in our conversation last week where it got a little maybe intense, right? And I may have shut down a little bit, but I was trying to process what was happening. Maybe I might have felt a little ganged up on, whatever. A range of emotions happened. I think that it was important. Like, I think synergy is important in all of our relationships and partnerships, right? Where we sometimes can tap into that energy, right? And in order to have an amicable relationship, we deal with the other person in a certain way, but a lot of it has a lot to do with ego. And so there was a time where Nat and I exchanged words, and I kind of just looked at her. She looked at me. She felt the energy. Nothing else had to be said. But what did we do after the call? I didn't do anything.
After the live.
After the live.
Yeah, I called you. I did a check-in.
She called me, and she did a check-in. And so I think a lot of it is work that we do personally, but then it's work that we do with each other, because we need to check in to communicate. And Nata, you absolutely, you're a fan of this. This is just communicate your desire, right? Let's get past these expectations, yada, yada, yada. But I think the beauty in the check-in was, are you okay? Are you okay? Talk to me about what you're feeling in this moment, right? Because the live was one thing, but in order for us to continue doing work and being at the same table, we always have to make sure that we communicate. Yes.
Great point. And someone said something in the comment, and that's the point that I think I'm trying to get to. Sometimes I hear what you're saying. I understand energy.
What are you referring to?
Yeah, which one?
Would you have called Natalie if she did not call you? Would you have called her and let her know that you felt some type of way?
You know what? I want to say yes, but I think last week the answer is no. I think if the tables were turned, I would have called her in a heartbeat. But I don't believe that I felt like there was anything wrong. Dex, that was a really good question, because it's causing me to like stop, shut up for a little bit and reflect. And if I had to really think about it after our conversation, I was relieved. I felt better.
Mm-hmm. Good.
But I didn't know that anything was wrong until we started. It was the first question, which was fine. Then it was the second question. And then I was like, wow. So I absolutely did kind of feel attacked a little bit. And when I was honest about, and I'll just go ahead and say it, when I was honest about, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Nat, I said, I get triggered when I feel like men and women for that matter are pit against each other. And so there was a statement she made where she said, Olin, why don't you tell him so that he can hear it from you? And I felt like that was a trigger for me, because in that moment I felt like, well, in our space, the Brothers Brunch, we all have opinions, but we don't have to do that. We don't have to, it doesn't have to be let him tell you, so because that implies that I don't hear you when you say it, and I do. It's just maybe I'm taking a little longer to process it. And so it's intent versus impact. But again, we have to get to the point where we talk about, look, that wasn't my intention, right? But I own the fact that this is how you walked away and how you were impacted. So what I had called, probably not. But if the tables were turned, I absolutely would have called if I felt the same energy.
No, that's awesome. And that's a full circle. I think that's knowing yourself when you have been offended or hurt by something, or feeling that sensation with you. Like, I don't like how that felt. I don't know what residue was left, and that's knowing yourself. And we talked about this last week, we don't always have the vocabulary for it, but we know when our body is not, like, the way that I feel now is not the same way that I felt at the beginning of this conversation. Something pivoted. And so using that change in a sensation within ourselves to use as a bridge to communicate. And so at the end of the day, the goal, and you guys executed it, was to talk. But I think that's a heavy burden as well, to be the person to always be aware of someone else being hurt and checking in. When, like, can you just let me know that you've been hurt as well? And not you particularly, but like, that's a heavy weight.
No. It is me, because I think that's the problem, right? If we're talking about, and help me, Nat, it's families being happy, healthy, and whole.
Mm-hmm.
if we're talking about that, Dex, if you're out there, what happens when I don't call, right? Now the energy's off from the onset on this live. And so, and here's the thing. This is not a new concept. Women are carrying this burden, have been carrying this burden for years, because some of us brothers aren't doing the work. And when I say doing the work, I mean, we're not doing something simple like saying, hey, this hurt me, right? And there's levels to that. There's levels to that, because when we're emotional or vulnerable, we talked about how that can hit, and how there has to be a certain level of vulnerability, a certain level of emotion that we share, because then that hits different with certain women. And it's this whole complexity of even showing up that way as a man, because we're conditioned to be a certain way. That's a whole nother conversation. But just imagine how easier life and relationships would be, Dex, to your point, if I would have just called and said, yo, point of clarification, what were your intentions when you did that?
Yeah.
But I didn't.
What is does the matter matter? Like, does the level of the conflict matter for me to have to get in contact with you in order to talk about something that we went through? Or is this like anytime I feel some type of way thing?
I think that's knowing yourself. And so is this something that ego driven? Like, okay, my ego's fractured. Like, damn, she didn't put peanut butter on my jelly. Like, whatever. Like, could you have done it yourself? Like, really realizing that. Or no, like, this is an ongoing thing. I've asked her for this particular thing and she's denied me. She knows, like, the trauma behind this, and she's completely not meeting my, so I think Natalie has said this in the 2-hour version of, you guys, humans, we should not always know what we're thinking and feeling, like, because it's going to be overwhelming. But I think in relationships, I want to preface a lot of this, especially in a relationship, not just trying to get to know someone or dating, but in a relationship, if you are committed to someone, whether in a relationship or marriage, I hear you in terms of like vulnerability. Hopefully that if you are committed to someone by word, vow, religion, that you feel comfortable to be vulnerable with them.
Facts.
Because,
And here's the other, Kev and I are still in the beginning stages of our relationship, right? So we're still learning each other. So if I'm picking up on things, it's also checking myself. Am I internalizing something, or did this really happen? Right? So it's important to do that. It was important for me to call him afterwards, because there would have been too much room for interpretation otherwise.
Yeah. And so, the crazy thing is the need, I needed that call, right? And so we talk about ego, and why did I need that call? Or why did I feel like better after that call? All of that is interesting when you think about it. And that's for me to figure out. But I needed that call. I felt like, wow, I probably should have made the call, but I wasn't going to make the call. Sometimes I think in life, we trick ourselves into believing that, you know what, it was what it was. We'll keep it pushing, right?
I was going to say, so you needing the call was not ego. You saying I wasn't going to make the call was
ego.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to bid myself adieu. Thank you once again. I'm going to go back into the comments into this training.
We appreciate you.
Chris, did we lose you? It's black over on your side.
Might just be dark, good brother. And you light skinned, so.
Well, listen, it's 8:51, so we are far over time. I do want to acknowledge some of the comments, because the comments have been popping tonight.
Yeah.
I thank you all so much for being engaged in this conversation. I also want to encourage you all to DM us respectively and let us know what topics you want us to continue to touch on, or if we missed some comments that you think we should expand upon in the coming weeks. Please give us that feedback, because like I said, we can't be present in the conversation and try to get to reading all the comments at the same time. But we do want to honor you for sharing and being engaged with us. A lot of conversation about what is considered cute in terms of, the person we are at home versus out in the world, and all of those things being relevant. Let's see.
Thanks. Bashir.
Ego versus words of affirmation, and stroking someone's ego versus words of affirmation. I think that's something completely different. I think we need to continue to define what ego is in the coming weeks. And I'm going to ask one of our good sisters who is well versed on this topic to come and mention, or, come and share her thoughts on that in a future conversation. I'm trying to see, what else do I see? I also want to point out, Kev, that Bashir did confirm that I was his friend first. And
thanks, Bosh.
She about to nitpick with you now.
Listen, I love my brothers who give me all the support out there.
It's all out. I love you guys. I enjoy the show, and I will ding in another time.
Hey, appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Anytime.
All right.
I appreciate us having the conversation, and I think a lot of for folks who are tuning in, what you have to realize is that Nat and I, we met virtually, like we met via Zoom, right? And we've not ever met in person, so we are still getting to know one another. I think one of the things I did end with, and during our last week's conversation offline, was, look, I'm going to do my very best to show up as Kev, right? And so if that feels funny, if that looks funny, we'll continue to just muscle through it. But I don't want to fabricate anything or any parts of me, and so that's really important to me. But yeah, we don't have a problem. But again, got to keep in mind we're still getting to know each other, and honestly, we don't talk enough off. Neither one of us have the time, right? Mm-hmm. And so most times, this is where we're really communicating. So.
Yep. Talk the night before, like, okay, this is the clip we're going to show in the morning, and I'll talk to you at 7:30.
Yeah. We'll do better at some point.
We're going to get better at that. But I also, in that offline conversation, Kevin and I agreed that our community needs to see us growing together and getting to know each other as an example for how it can be done. And we're not always going to get it right, but we can be our full selves and not feel embarrassed or attacked or anything like that, because the whole point of this is to maintain, sustain, and rebuild and reimagine the Black family. So with that comes a lot of vulnerable moments, a lot of learning moments, teachable moments, and that's what we embrace and we welcome. So if us going through our little tit helps in any way, if us sharing that information here tonight helps in any way, then we are doing our jobs.
Yeah. I hope you had a great week. We typically start off with asking that, and I didn't. So I hope you had a great week. My week was dope, and I hope everybody out there who's viewing. Listen, we appreciate y'all, man. I have a lot of offline conversations with my brothers, and it's a whole vibe. And I appreciate those who will never say anything, but you all are locked in. And I mean locked in from beginning to end. And super grateful because we don't know, we're trying to figure it all out, and whether or not, this platform is fruitful. But as long as you all are here, we want to be here. So
absolutely. So check for us this time next week. Ladies, if you are not already a member of Whine and Cheese, please head to my bio right now. There's a link for you to join our tribe. We do have a members only app where we do conversations like these, where we pour into each other, encourage, lift one another, so that we can go back out in the world with full cups. So again, in the link in my bio, click on Find Your Tribe or Join Our Tribe, and join us in the app. Kev has put the URL for the Brothers Brunch in the comments, and that is where you can join his offline community as well. You want to tell them about it?
TheBrothersBrunch.com is our portal where you can find all the information. We're doing a lot of good work. If you are in the Philly or tri-state area, we recently got funded for a violence prevention grant where it's called Off the Muscle, Same Hustle, Different Muscle, where we put former incarcerated and former street dudes in front of current individuals who are in the street and looking for a way out, and we show them how to do a legal hustle. So we're super excited that we can be a part of the city of Philadelphia's efforts to stop the violence. Please join our community.
That's beautiful. All right, y'all. Till next week, may you be happy, healthy, and whole.
Unlearn. Let's go.